question and answer afterwards that will help most assuredly answer a lot of your questions.
Well, I'm Andrea Bose. I'm the other half of Sophia Sacred Arts. And while Catherine is Orthodox, I like to say that I'm unorthodox.
You have to talk
Can people hear me in the back?
No, a little bit louder. You may have to
I was raised Roman Catholic, and I've been a long-time student, both academically and personally, in multicultural comparative religion. So I paint traditional icons that are liturgical and Christian. I also paint icons which are Asian and of other religions. So there's where the unorthodoxy comes in. I have to say that if you feed them, they will come, because this is the largest group that we've had. And I think the food might be the key there. So Catherine and I are making a note of that. Maybe we have to do something along those lines. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Diaconate Project, which is where Sophia Sacred Arts really was born. Catherine and I both had our own individual businesses prior to that. And when we were approached by the two deacons, actually, where's Kathy? Dick Nigaman being one of them, from the Archdiocese, they were looking for two iconographers to do some icons to honor the deacons of southeastern Wisconsin. And bless their hearts, they wanted women, and they wanted local women. So that was us, and we were so honored and pleased to have gotten this commission. So, the next slide, please. Now, I keep this in here because I don't know if anyone knows the cathedral staff, but this is Scott, and he is like the MacGyver of the cathedral. We keep him in here on this presentation because he's kind of a symbol of the wonderful support that we got from everyone at the cathedral, from the office staff to the liturgical ministers, the music ministers, of course, Father Jeff. If you look closely at this picture, you will see the rather archaic construction that Scott made for us the first day that we painted at the cathedral. I should back up and say, we painted 3 days a week in the cathedral. And the cathedral is very dark. There's really not very much light. So the first day we noticed that this was not going to be an easy task. And I'm a psychotherapist by day. This is one of those seasonal affective disorder lights that you use for people. But it's on a stand. It's on a little table stand. So Scott happened to wander by, and we're like, this is not working. Literally went into his little cave somewhere, came back 5 minutes later with this very strange thing, but it worked. And we used it every time we were painting in the cathedral. So the next slide. So we actually painted from August 4th until October 31st in the cathedral. And this is another shot. We also had another, like a lamp, a standing lamp from the 1960s that actually literally fell apart the day that we unloaded it. And again, Scott came to our rescue. So that was our setup in the niche where the icons actually wound up. We thought that it was very ironic that the deacons picked the place where the icons were to be ensconced permanently in the cathedral, and it's under the stained glass window of St. Jude, the patron saint of impossible causes. We thought that was a personal thing for us because we're having our challenges painting in the cathedral, but also to really represent and underscore the diaconate of this archdiocese. The deacons of this archdiocese, for those of you, I'm sure you're familiar with some, they are phenomenal in the work that they do, and they give so generously of their time in so many different ministries. You can do the next slide. This is the quote from the Bible about what deacons need to be, the character that deacons need to have. And as you read through, you'll see they're hard shoes to fill, but they do. And they're quite something. And we really, as we were doing the painting of the icons, we really came to appreciate and understand the diaconate so much more. And the purpose that it will have in this church, I believe it's really, the deacons are really going to fulfill a very special, and already do, a special purpose in the church. So these are some of the ministries that the deacons do in this archdiocese. And as you can see, very important. And they're very often behind the scenes. They're not people that push themselves forward. In fact, when the project was proposed to the diaconate, some of them did not want the icons to be made, only because they did not want to be called out in any way, which really says a lot about who they are. Next. So, the deacons chose these two symbols for the honoring the diaconate. We have St. Stephen on the left and St. Lawrence on the right. Both of these saints are deacons of the early church. Interestingly, they are honored by all factions of Christianity. So all the Christian churches, this is before the Great Schism, before the East-West divided. These saints are honored by the East and the Western Church and the Protestant churches as well. So it really was a very kind of a good choice from that. These are pretty traditional saints' images. The forward-facing image, the garb. One of the deacons mentioned to us that, I don't know if people know that deacons actually have a sash that goes underneath and it's at an angle. We chose the more traditional stoles as representing the authority of their ministry, and imagine that the sashes are underneath in the angular. What else do I want to say about this? The hand position, that's very clear here, is a very typical traditional hand position. It is a benediction, hand of benediction. It also makes the Greek letters, IXC, which is for Christ. St. Stephen is holding the Bible because he is known for his preaching and his healing. St. Lawrence is holding a church. You can't really see that he has the poor represented by two figures. I think maybe in other slides we'll be able to see that better. Interestingly, we didn't know what to put on the Bible. There are all kinds of different images that we could have chosen. And one Sunday we were at the cathedral, and one of the deacons came by, and I asked him to show me what the deacons carry when they process down the center of the cathedral. And he brought out the gospel book, which we decided, it was so lovely, it was so beautiful, we decided to put that on the finished icon, and I'll show you that in another slide. But this, the side that we painted is the side that only the deacons see. The rest of the congregation sees another side. The deacons see the inside, and that's what we put on this icon. So it was kind of a special customization, if you will, for them. Next slide. So, these are not good slides, unfortunately, but these are the finished products. You can see the Bible, the gospel book here. The colors we chose were in conjunction with the input from the deacons. They wanted a lot of reds because both of these deacons, of course, are martyrs. St. Stephen was martyred, was stoned. In the orb, again, you can't really see it, but we have little stones here to represent his martyrdom. In St. Lawrence, we have fire because, of course, legend says that he was grilled on a gridiron. But the deacons wanted a lot of red, which of course is martyrdom, blood, life, the zeal of the church, the zeal for the divine. The gold is transcendence, luminescence. The white, of course, is purity. You can't really see, but the hair on both of these images, the hair in icons is always very well ordered. It's always very precise. And it really has to do with lifting your thoughts to God. Everything in an icon has a meaning. And it's almost like learning how to read, to kind of decipher what those meanings are. So, icons. Icons are created to lead us into the inner room of prayer and bring us close to the heart of God. They are images that imprint themselves on one's inner life, and they are created for the sole purpose of offering access to the mystery of invisible truths. So praying with icons is praying without words. It's praying with the heart. Icons are points of visual and spiritual intersection with the eternal. Icons in the Eastern Orthodox Church are called windows to the divine. And it's said that as we are looking through those windows are also looking to us. So there is a communication that happens with icons if you can become still and experience it. Symbols make present what they represent. And I feel like in these days I have to say that, because while it may seem self-evident, I don't know that we really haven't lost touch with that. The idea that symbols really do carry the power and the presence of what they're representing. And of course, icons are a most wonderful example of that. So the idea is to gaze with longing in your heart and allow the icon to gaze back at you with openness and expectation, focusing on God's presence as it's revealed in the icon. And I set up here on this little table a little shrine. You know, the Eastern Orthodox people they kiss the icons, they have candles, they bless them, they bring them to their priests for blessing. It is lovely to have one set up in your own home, at a little corner somewhere for prayer. This icon is the Vladimir Virgin. I've had it for years. I have in my little basket there a rock from Medjugorje, when I went to Medjugorje. I have 2 acorns from Assisi when I went to visit the hermitage where St. Francis used to live, and then also my rosary. But it brings such a beautiful presence into your home, and it gives you a focal point for your prayer life and your meditation and contemplative practice. Next slide, please. So here are the finished icons, but kind of showing you some of the process that it went through. So this was an earlier stage, this was the next stage, and then the final. I don't think I haven't said anything else about those except they're big. They're bigger than you think. They're like 2 feet by 3 feet. And Catherine's done big pieces before. I've not. It was quite an experience, and trying to even maneuver around them was quite an experience. And you really feel like you're face to face with these saints. So next. This is, according to tradition, this is the first ever icon. And I was telling the woman with the icon, who has a beautiful icon that I hope she'll share with people later, about icons and the stories that surround icons. There are all these stories about the first icon, and a lot of them, are a little thin in some of their history. But this particular icon is a representation of what is supposedly the very first icon. And the story goes that when Jesus was still alive on the earth, there was a king who had leprosy, and he was not able to come to see Jesus himself. So he sent a servant to Jesus and asked him for something so that he could be healed. And the story goes that Jesus took a cloth and pressed it to his face, and the image of his face was retained on the cloth, and then he took it to the servant took it to the king, and the king was cured of leprosy. This